Hello, everybody, and welcome to 98.5 ReactionLand FM. I'm John Marshall.
Yeah.
On this episode, I will be doing a reaction to the Foxes and Fossils performing Black Horse, a Cherry Tree, filmed live from their December 30th concert event. And it all begins right now.
Welcome to ReactionLand.
Alright, well, ladies and gentlemen, we have for you yet another great clip from their December 30th concert that was completely sold out.
Yeah.
Please stay tuned after the reaction. We're going to have Scott Kale in the virtual studio, friend of Ross and Scott King. So it should be very exciting. Please hit that like button if you enjoy the interviews, and the subscribe also helps with the algorithms, because there's not really a lot of money into YouTube anymore these days. So with that being said, let's jump into tonight's reaction. Here comes the Foxes and Fossils performing Black Horse, a Cherry Tree. Alright, here we go.
Well, my heart knows it better than I know myself, so I'm gonna let it do all the talking. I came across a place in the middle of nowhere with a big black horse and a cherry tree. Felt a little fear upon my back, said don't look back, just keep on walking. And the big black horse said, look this way. He said, hey there, baby, won't you marry me? But I said, no, 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 no. I said, no, no, you're not the one for me. No, 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 no. I said, no, no, you're not the one for me. Well, my heart had a problem in the early hours, so I stopped it dead for a beat or two. And I cut some cord and I shouldn't have done it, and I won't forgive me after all these years. Yeah. So I sent it to the place in the middle of nowhere with a big black horse and a cherry tree. And it won't come back, 'cause it's so happy now. I got a whole other world to see, yeah. And I said no, 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 no. I said no, no, you're not the one for me. No, 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 no. I said no, no, you're not the one for me. For me, big black horse and a cherry tree. I can't quite get there 'cause my heart was taking me. Yeah. Big black horse and a cherry tree. I can't quite get there 'cause my heart was taking me.
Oh my goodness gracious. Man, what a great job by Chase. I am completely blown away by her performance on that. She had some belting power in that one. almost channels a little bit of a Ann Wilson from Heart. She's got that nice growl in there. Man, beautiful job. I am so heartbroken that I couldn't be there live and in person. You can't argue that these are some pretty great seats. These videos are filmed at a really awesome distance, and you're getting pretty much the whole entire stage, some close-ups and stuff. Beautifully done. The three foxes, ladies and gentlemen, I can't express it enough how wonderful it is to see all three of them in a live concert event performing. The Fossils, and of course there are some guest musicians. It eluded me to ask for the other names of these other people, and I'm so sorry. Hopefully this is provided on their website and what have you on the Fox and Fossils fan page. All the links are down below. If you want to go directly to their site and check them out, buy some merchandise, support them, give them a virtual tip. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so my station manager is telling me we have Scott Kale joining us right now in the virtual studio. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's fantastic. So let's go ahead and join him, shall we?
Yes.
Alright, let's do that. Joining me on the podcast this morning from his home in Lexington, Virginia, is Scott Kale. Scott Kale was a very personal friend of Scott Moniker King. Thank you for joining me this morning, Scott.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Great having you. So, what was your friendship like with Scott?
So we met. Ross and I actually were playing in a band together. Wasn't like a regular kind of band playing every weekend, twice a week kind of thing. But we were in a band together, and he was very busy. And his brother had just come home from Atlanta, and I had never met Scott before. And he knew that Scott needed to get back in the music scene, and so he asked if he could bow out and put Scott in as the bass player. And so I, of course, said sure. And so I met Scott the first time for a rehearsal at my house, and we had probably 30 songs that we had on a list at the time. And we got together, and he knew those songs and just was ready. Like, he was just prepared, and it was awesome. He was singing harmonies, and but that was my first introduction to Scott, and then my friendship from there built because of the Foxes and Fossils project. That's what really kind of brought us closer, because he needed somewhere to record and didn't have the equipment, and it's difficult to record yourself anyway. So he would come to my house to do all of his recordings.
You played a very integral part in a lot of Scott's and Ross's situation, and I'm so very touched.
My son's a musician, and he had recorded a bunch of stuff at our house. So we had a nice Mac with, I still do, with the studio monitors and a vocal mic and some other things set up in there. Actually had a full drum set set up with mics on it. But so Scott would come over, and we'd go upstairs. It's a little small room off of the main room, and he would sit down. I would pull up. Tim shared with me his Dropbox folder, and so I'd pull up Tim's Dropbox folder. He had one that said Scott and Scott, and so I'd pull the file out for the day, and the file would have everything but Scott in it, everything but bass. So it was already mixed. So I'd get to hear kind of almost the final mix of the song by the time that we got it. And so we would set up a couple cameras, and then we would do a bunch of takes. And interestingly, so Scott would prepare, before he came over. If he wasn't prepared, he would say, we need to do this another day, but he would always make sure he was prepared. But he would sit down and he would play 3 or 4 different iterations of all the lines. He had different, the bass line was never the same all the way through, unless it was a simple, like the Oompa song that they did for the TV show. That was, very simple. But then we would send those to Tim. So Scott would leave. I would take the files and bounce the tracks, and then I would send the tracks to Tim, and then I would send the video to Tim, and then Tim would take the tracks, and he would decide, I like this part that Scott did here in the chorus, and I like this part that he did here. So he might actually cut those up, and then what came out of it would be sometimes one of his exact takes, but usually I think it had some blending of the takes. And then if we had to shoot video again, which we usually did because he would change it. So Scott would have to learn the bass part. Does that make sense? So
Right.
Scott would have to learn the bass part that Tim made out of all the takes. And then he would come back and we would shoot him playing those bass parts over top of the actual song, so that he had the video that lined up with what he was doing with his fingers.
So it was almost, isn't technology something crazy that you could actually record from hundreds of miles away? And so were there separate like recordings of it as well that you had to sync up the video to? Or did he actually take the video's sound and use that?
Exactly. Exactly.
Ooh, that's even trickier.
So to shoot one video for Fox and Fossils, it was 2 trips to my house. So to get the audio recording right first, and then come back to get the video.
So I also understand that you are the craftsman who created the urn for Scott.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about the process of that and the framework that had to go with that.
So I would go visit Scott at his house when he was in the process of dying, and he had hospice there at the house. I'd go sit with him, and sometimes Ross would be there, and sometimes be sitting with his mom and Ross. And but he was surrounded by 150 instruments that were all in cases, and he had a bunch of ukuleles, and a bunch of those were broken. So he would buy things thinking he was going to go fix them later, because he was a craftsman. I don't know if you know, but he was a furniture repair guy in Atlanta for a while. And so he would buy things and fix them. And so he had a bunch of guitars and basses and ukuleles that were broken. And so Ross says, Mom and I would like you to make Scott's urn. And I was thinking that that you would use some parts from these broken instruments. And so, I was able to think about it while Scott was still alive, which was interesting. And then when he passed, I came up here to Lexington, and I brought some of the parts with me, and I started searching for some wood. And so I had a design that I did first I didn't like, and I went back and I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's a piece of cherry top with some inlay, and I carved basically the symbol for a giving person, which is hands holding a heart. And then on the sides of the urn, I used the fretboard of an ukulele on the front as kind of decorative, but also as sort of a stairway to heaven, if you will, kind of the ladder to climb up. And then I tried to use the woods that were besides the top. I tried to use woods that were pretty common in instruments. So maple and mahogany. And
Wow.
yeah, it turned out really pretty.
Yeah, I saw the picture of it. It was beautiful, just the craftsmanship that went into that. Ross was telling me that at the funeral home, when the pastor or preacher was doing his thing, it was all covered up, and when he uncovered it, he was like, "Wow, why didn't you tell me it looked like beautiful? I would have taken the cover off of that thing."
Yeah, we're at the reception at the church, and the priest asked, he's like, "Can you talk about your urn?" He said, "I had no idea what was underneath this cloth." So it kind of put me on the spot, and I stood there and talked about it, which was nice.
Yeah,
That was a labor of love.
Yes, absolutely, and I commend you for that, because that's hard to do, bro. That's so hard,
Oh,
especially
so
somebody that
here's
close.
a funny story about that. So Scott was a better craftsman than I was, and he was a detail guy. And so one thing I didn't want to do is cheat and make this thing with screws and, just so I was having an issue with, you'd be amazed at how hard to make a 90-degree box can be. If your tools are a little bit off to get perfect angles and joints and stuff. So I was having some issues with it, and I used these pocket hole screws. And when I got finished, I was like, Scott would not be happy to be sitting in a box for eternity with pocket hole screws. I said something to Ross about it, and we got a laugh about it. And then I went back and fixed it so that to make sure that would not be the case for him in his final resting place.
Wow. Only you could think of that, my friend. Oh,
yeah, we were having conversations back and forth that during that whole process. Like, Scott, can you just deal with these pocket hole screws? And I would hear him saying, no, I can't do that. So it's just funny.
that is funny. I'm just so sad I never got to have that interview with him, because I can't even imagine the personality that he had. And that's the sad part, is I have no recollection of any of that, because I never got to see that part of him. I've only seen the creative part that's on video in the Foxes and Fossils videos.
Yeah, he was the most down to earth. Like he didn't understand. I mean, he understood a little bit of the excitement of the band, but the fame part of it was just, he's like, I don't understand why people are so goo over me and Tim and all this. So yeah, this is good music, but we're just normal people, and that's why he wanted to be. He would come. That's the other thing. When he'd come to the house, it was hard to get him to stop talking so that we could record. He was just talk, and I'd be trying to think about, what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to get my levels right. I'm trying to make sure he's plugged in right, and he's just talking. But the whole time he's talking, he's telling me about comments that people made on YouTube or on Facebook. And there were some people that he was, he made sure he got a birthday card for somebody, and he sent it to Tim to have everybody else sign it and send the birthday card to some guy. And he was adamant that he be friendly to the people online, and also be the protector if there were some he called them creeps that would show up on the YouTube feed and sometimes say something about the girls, and he would come in as the dad and knock them back a notch.
Good for him. Wow. Yeah, he had a giving heart. According to Ross, it was a very giving heart, and I can understand why you had the hands with the heart in it, because it's very fitting. Did you have a chance to see the concert?
I was there. I did.
And how was the event?
It was awesome. It was awesome. I showed up. So I was in Atlanta for 18 hours. So I flew from Roanoke, Virginia on the first show was on Thursday, right? So I flew from Roanoke to Atlanta. I got there about 2:00. Had lunch with one of the fans that I keep touch with, who's also an artist craftsman, I'll call him. And then I went to the venue early. Tim texted me and said, "Why don't you come early and meet everybody before the Patreons get there, and then before the pre-show?" So I was able to see some of the rehearsal and some of the stuff that they were going through, and also Hazeldean asked me to film a little bit, excuse me, while I was there. So I did a little bit of film that I submitted for the documentary that's going to come out. And then they weren't allowed to film during the concert. They asked them to turn all cameras off.
Wow.
Which is why you're not seeing any video.
Yes, I was going to say even like Garth Brooks concert, I see videos and stuff, but wow.
Yeah, and everybody was very respectful of that. And I think that's with this band, that's their income, is making a YouTube video and putting it out for so that they want to make sure it's on their channel. It's them that's doing it. It's their mix of the sound. It's their mix of the video. So just like the Bella's Pizza and the taco place, these will be, all the songs that they did will become videos that will get released out. That's the way I'm assuming Tim's going to do it. It was a great concert. Ross and I and Ross's girlfriend Carter sat in the front row right in front of Tim, because Ross wasn't playing every song. He needed to be close and get up. So he was able to jump up on the stage and change over. And it was cool because he was super excited. He was super nervous, which I would have been way more nervous, but Ross is a true professional. He's very polished, and he performs all the time. So he got up and did his thing, and it was great, well received. And the sound, of course, Tim's not going to do that half-assed. Excuse my language, but it was great. The small venue, I think they seated 500 people. It was an old theater in Hateville, it was good. So I went to the concert, met everybody, and then I went back to my hotel room, which was about a mile away, and then I flew out the next morning early. I was back in Lexington, so it was a quick trip.
So a big difference over the Pizza Parlor recordings. Just the it had to have been a phenomenal outcome. I mean, just 500 people. That's no slouch. I mean, that's pretty good. But I'm pretty sure that if they were to actually tour, that they would be pretty successful. But
I think so. It's a tough time to have. It was the 2 days leading up to New Year's Eve, so it was like the Christmas break for a lot of people. So the stories I heard from the people that came were there were people that took a week off and drove from the West Coast somewhere, or and the term I kept hearing was bucket list. I hope I'm not speaking out of school. I don't know what I'm allowed to say and not allowed to say, so I'll leave it at what I said. I think that I think what's going to happen is, just like the Bellas, there's going to be a video of this song that they did and a video of this song that they did. And I think I saw where somebody posted the songs that they actually played in the concert. So I don't know that that's a secret, but I think that's what you're going to see. If I were Tim, that's how I would do it, because that's the income for the band.
Yeah, I and merchandise, of course, and I hope the merchandise was really good for them as well.
I have a feeling that went really well. The table with the merchandise was always a big line, and it was Sammy and Maggie and Chase were out there a lot of the time just behind the table talking to people, and Tim was out there a bunch, and it was very up close and personal. There was no, have a backstage pass to go meet everybody. They came out front and met everybody and talked to everybody. And I told Tim like a month before, I said, you got to be careful. You guys are gonna be up there singing 2 nights in a row, talking to fans. I said, how are you going to protect your voice? He said, oh, we'll be fine. We only have, each person's only singing lead on so many songs or whatever. And then after that first night, sure enough, he was struggling, and he's like, oh, I've got a whole nother night tomorrow night to do this again. I gotta protect my voice. So I don't think I could have done it.
So if Scott would have been here, what would he have been like? I mean, honestly,
I think just like you see in the videos of him smiling and just having fun. He loved to play music, just absolutely loved to play music, and he would have just been up there grinning ear to ear. And the same for Ross. I mean, when you saw Ross on the stage, it was just like, he was feeling it, just feeling it. Yeah. And so Ross, as much as he plays music, which is, he rehearses with a band on Wednesday nights. He has gigs sometimes on Thursdays, but pretty much every Friday and Saturday night. And then in between, like, he's playing music. I'll call him and talk to him on a Tuesday afternoon, and he's got a guitar in his hand. It's those two guys are just full of music. And Mom was an artist, so in their house there's artwork all over the place. She was an art teacher, actually. So there's pictures that Scott painted, and pictures that Ross painted, and pictures that Fontaine painted, and it's just a house full of art.
That's beautiful, man. Well, Scott, I thank you so much for sharing these wonderful stories. I commend you, my friend. I'm so glad that you've had some recognition for your Foxy Caster, and that's got to be cloud 9 all by itself. And it's a beautiful guitar, I won't lie to you, and I smile from ear to ear whenever I see it in one of the videos.
If the new videos come out, like I said, you'll see Darwin playing it, because it was okay. It was front and center. The stage was set up. Have you seen pictures of the stage?
I have, actually, yes.
Yeah. So the couch, they had the couch sitting there, and on the left of the couch, from our vision, from the audience, was a picture of Scott with a mandolin sitting below it. And apparently the mandolin was a mandolin that Scott gave to Maggie or Chase. I forget what the story was, a long time ago. So anyway, picture Scott, and the mandolin on the other side was the Foxy Caster. And so of course I walked in, I'm like, yay, the Foxy Caster's up there. To make something like that, would carve it is cool, but to make it where you carve it and it's very unique and different, but actually plays well, that was exciting for me to get the feedback that I got of how well it was set up. And I put authentic Fender parts in it. I didn't want to put cheap stuff in there, so it's got Fender pickups and bridge plate and saddle and all that stuff.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I mean, it is one thing to carve something so beautiful, but it's another thing to actually sound good too. And you got more than lucky, but I think that the craftsmanship that you perform, it's like surgery for some people.
Yeah,
and only you can think of the inlay screws, my friend.
Scott would have thought about it, I promise you.
For sure. Anything else that stands out before we wrap it up, my friend? Anything else that you want to share about your wonderful friend?
I think he would be a little embarrassed over the outpouring of love for him, but he just, that was part of his. If you read the book, you'll read about his addiction and his issues that he was having, the depression and stuff. And I think he just never was able to appreciate himself the way that people appreciated him. And the part about the giving person, if you talk to anybody that knew him, that's the first thing they tell you.
Man, thank you so much for joining us this morning, brother. God bless you, and I wish you all the best. I really do. And well, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have for this episode. I would like to thank my very special guest today, Mr. Scott Kale. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm John Marshall. Till the next time that we meet, God bless you.
Hold it! Here's your change.